Are you struggling to find something to do now that we're going through the writers and actors strikes? Too Opinionated has you covered. 625 and counting episodes of the best actors, musicians, writers, and everybody involved in the entertainment universe. Go to MeisterCon Pod on YouTube and subscribe, and you'll never miss an episode. Thank you guys for your support. Until next time, bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Too Opinionated. So excited today. I've got writer, filmmaker Mary Gallagher with me. So welcome, Mary.
Hi, Michael. Nice to be here.
Yeah, I was pretty excited to have you on the show. I watched the trailer for Holistay, and it scared me. But I'm a big chicken, so the plan for us is, as soon as we're back we're going to be in LA for a week. When we're back from LA, we're going to have all the kids and their wives, and we're going to have a big thing at the studio and just watch there, because I need backup if I'm going to watch something scary. So
okay, well, I'm going to say to you, it's more of a suspense thriller than horror.
I kind of got that from the trailer. It looked like it was just kind of slowly ratcheting up the tension and trying to figure out what's going on, which at those, I like those pretty well. I like being scared. It's the gore that gets me.
No gore. There's no gore. I'm not a fan of slasher. It's a very slow burn. I go back to the old Hitchcock films, one of my favorite writer-directors, where it takes your building the tension. And then the end is when it's all unravels, but it's very watchable in terms of violence, in terms of any kind of blood or gore. That's not my style. They labeled it as a horror movie, but it's more suspense thriller.
But I get the suspense part, which that sounds awesome. And the trailer's really well done. It gives you just enough so that makes you want to watch the movie without giving away what happens in the movie.
Right. That the whole thing is the ending. So I really, if people haven't watched it, which I'm going to take a guess they probably haven't at this point, it just came out, but the ending is everything. So I'm very careful not to give that away.
Yeah.
It's the very last scene.
Okay. Well, okay. So we have to talk about the movie, but before we do that, let's talk about you a little bit. Give us a little bit of your background. What was your profession? How did you transition into like the entertainment world?
So I was a political columnist in Philadelphia for 15 years. Okay. I also produced political debates for Comcast. Pennsylvania is a very pivotal political state.
That's right.
It's the bastion of politics. It's the seat of the country. It started with so it's a lot going on there. It's great to be a political writer in that particular state. And as time went on, I did a documentary. It took me 2 years to shoot. I traveled all over the country. I started in 2006, came out 2008. It was on Netflix for a while, called Erectile Dysfunction.
I watched that. It had been a while.
It's been a while. It was a low budget doc, but it did well. I mean, it came out at a time that was an interesting point in history. It was an open presidential election. So George Bush was leaving. His term was up. John McCain was running as the Republican, and then Obama was running as the Democrat. Yeah. So we were coming out of the Iraq war. A lot of people were angry at this point. They had all been for it. Then they realized there was no reason for it. Right. Again, I look at both sides. I don't like to be opinionated, but you also have to present the fact that if it is a fact, right? So all that's going on. And then you talk about the packaging of candidates, how they're kind of like actors, they're put out front, they dress them, they tell them, they write their speeches for them, they tell them what to say. They really don't have, today, I think presidents are more or less like figureheads more than any decision makers, because they don't make any decisions. They've signed something
Right.
that's put in front of them. But it's the way our system is set up as a democracy. We have the Congress and the Senate, and that's because nobody wanted a dictatorship. Well, we're not a dictatorship from the president, but we do have a lot of laws and things in place that prevent us as citizens to even know what's happening to our tax dollars. We don't know. We have no say. So it's a kind of a weird hybrid government system we have today. I think people are becoming more aware of what's going on, whether 10 years ago they just weren't. I think there's a lot of, going back, we're I don't know, age wise, but like if you go back in history and look at, the Vietnam War protests, right? They started in the 70s. People were tired of it and they started to react to it, whether it's before, like my father was in Korean War, right? When those veterans came home, they were hailed as heroes, no, not so with the Vietnam vets.
It definitely had changed by then.
So I think, and that was then, and then there was a prosperous time, right? And now we're going back to a period where I think you're going to see, I don't want to say revolution, but you're going to see you've already seen it. You've already seen things unravel, right? And I think I think there's a big disconnect now going on between the government and the people. And I think people are finally waking up to the fact that they have no say. And I don't mean to sound like a conspiracy theorist or anything like that. If I'm just looking at, from my perspective, like politically, what's going on now, it's very different times, different times.
Yeah. It's even I was fairly young through the 70s, but I remember some of that. But this stuff we have going on now, to me, is the first time we've ever had it to this extent, and that may
Correct.
be, that's it's surprising. Maybe it shouldn't be at this point, but it's surprising just how far we kind of got off track a little bit with our political parties. Both parties have had their struggles, and people are getting tired of that. People are starting to question. Why is there just, a few people making all the money? Why do we have the tax system we do? Why don't we all just pay the exact same tax, including businesses and billionaires?
That's right. Flat tax.
Sure. Flat tax, no deductibles. You wouldn't even have to file. It's crazy.
It is crazy. It's beyond. If I had small children today, I would be concerned about what's going to be.
I'm in the grandparent stage. I've got 5 young grandkids, and I worry about them, because it's just, who knows? Hopefully we'll don't. But it's been a little iffy.
It's been very iffy. We don't know. So I kind of, after the documentary, my paper got, how the newspaper business is changing, right? The print news gone away. So the paper I got downsized column, and then the paper got sold.
Well, and I get that because we're locally, we're having, papers buying out other papers. They went a few years back to not publishing on Monday. It's online only. And then last month we went to just one paper for the weekend. So it's
wow.
Edition. So now we're getting basically 5 days instead of 7. For someone that grew up and loves to read, I like it in my hands.
Me too. I like my paper in my hand, and it's, now it's all digitized. You can still get a paper in major cities. In Vegas here, we have a big paper, but we only have one paper.
Right.
In Philly, there were 2. There are still 2, the Philadelphia Inquirer and the Philadelphia Daily News. But, it's a lot of it was printing press costs that kind of killed it, right? Because there's unions, right? There's the printer union, the press union, and then there's the guild, which is the reporters union. They have to pay these per their union contract. They have to be paid X dollars. Right. And if you're not getting revenue, you can't pay people. That's where it started.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me that you had to get out of of that line of work.
I
Because
did, although you still need content. I mean, there's still reporters. I mean, you still, the delivery's different, right? You have online now, everything's digitized, but you still have to provide the story. So somebody has to go out there and do the story. It's only different delivery, right? But back in, they were doing reorganizations and they were trying to farm people out, like taking early buyouts,
right.
taking reporters, giving them 3 or 4 different beats rather than just covering one. I mean, they were making quite a bit of money back in the day because that was, that's, people read all the papers. So you would have a story, feature story that would take a writer 3 months to write. And that's all he had to do. He or she had to do was focus on this one story.
Right.
Now you have to, they were multitasking. You have to cover this. You might be doing, some crime scene, and you have to run over and cover some debate going on.
Right.
So all that's changed. So that went away. And I said to myself, maybe it's time for me to change what I want to do. And there's not really a film life, in, so to speak, in Philadelphia. They've shot a lot of films there because they had good tax credits, but it's not LA, right? You have to go to start. And even now today, I moved to LA in 2010.
Right.
It's all changed even now, right? We're in 2023. LA is no longer the film town. Now film towns are everywhere, anywhere.
Oh yeah.
You can be anywhere and not, Hollywood is not Hollywood anymore. I don't know what it is, but it's, the studios are there, but nobody's using them as much because you can shoot everywhere. You can shoot, and they have what's called runaway production. The big studios are always looking for tax breaks, right? So like I just saw back in the winter, I saw a Liam Neeson film came out, Marlowe, right? It was supposed to be shot in Los Angeles in 1926.
Right.
It was not shot in Los Angeles. The internal scenes were shot in Ireland and the externals were shot in Barcelona. There was no LA at all, right? Because they gave them tax incentives.
Yeah.
And that's been going on for a very long time. So while you might have the offices per se in LA, but I'd say in the next 10 years, these studios are just going to be gone.
Yeah. I exactly right. It's definitely changing. I mean, we're not even, or for the most part, we're still not, trying out in person. Most of it's done virtually now. You send in your tape.
That's right. No more face-to-face auditions. I send my reel in and, and it's all done, and I think studios are just going to be places where you can take a tour.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think you're well, and like some of the studios out in Burbank, companies are buying those out that aren't film companies and using the studios, and that I think is kind of interesting because they're getting repurposed for other media, but not necessarily film.
Well, Burbank is all TV. All the TV shows, a lot of the TVs are and that will still continue because TV still goes on. People will still watch the daytime shows. The nighttime shows are all shot, most of them in New York. I think Jimmy Kimmel is still shot in LA, but Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert are all New York studios. But Burbank, the soap operas, the afternoon shows, a lot of stuff still shot in Burbank. TV. Not so much film studios. I think Culver City closed. That was the one where Gone with the Wind was shot. But it's deemed historic, so they can't do anything to it. They can't do anything, touch it. Developer can't make it into a high-rise condominiums or anything. So that's there. Paramount's still there where the Godfather films were shot, Paramount still, but they're not using the studios as much, they're not using them for their scenes. Used to do the Westerns, they were all shot on the back lot, right? Now they'll just go to New Mexico and shoot it because they can, and they can get crew there and they can get tax breaks there and they can use local talent there and it's just cheaper.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So let's talk about the movie. So, where did you come up for where'd the idea come from? What's Holistay about?
So I was doing a bigger production. I'm doing my own picture. When I moved to LA, I was working on a lot of other people's projects and bigger projects. And then I decided to do my own, and I had it organized. It was a dramedy about Irish pilots flying from LA or flying from Ireland to LAX, and they get stranded at the airport and a strike, baggage handler strike. And but I lost that during COVID. The funding fell out because it was, didn't work. So now I have to retool, right? So it's, 2020, 2021. What am I going to do now, right? So my distributor, my good friend Richard Wolf, head of Breaking Glass Pictures, who distributed Holistay, said to me, "Why don't you do a low budget horror film?"
Yeah.
So I said, "Oh, that's not a bad idea. So let me think about this." So I like a good ghost story. I like ghosts and spirits. I'm not slasher. I don't like blood. I don't like demonic possession. But I like a good story. And I go back to the old Hitchcock stories. Psycho was a story, it was creepy and weird and interesting. And I think the human psyche is more scarier than some apparition on the wall or anything like that, right? So I started to think about, how can I put this together? Because I don't have a big budget, right? So I look at some of the films that I liked in the past, horror movies, or Halloween 1. Halloween 1 was brilliant. Why? Because there was no CGI. They didn't have any of that back then, in 1978, right? It was all lighting and music and the mask. Simple, right? All practically done in one house. They did have a big cast, but it was basically in the house like that. And then I thought The Strangers, which came out in 2008, Brian Bertino film, had Liv Tyler, and her and her boyfriend were in a little cabin in the woods vacationing, and then these masked people start coming in, and that had no real violence. I mean, it had some, but not all the way through. I mean, the end was kind of icky, but it was suspense, and it was done with lighting and music. So that's what I decided to do with Holistay. And I started thinking about, okay, so one location will be a house. Where will that house be? I decided to write it in San Diego, even though it was shot here in Vegas. It was actually shot in my house. The movie shot in my house.
Really?
Yes, because I didn't want to shoot in San Diego. It was too expensive to shoot in San Diego, and they didn't have crew down there. It's not a film town.
Yeah.
So, and to ship crew down from LA would be costly. You'd have to put them up in hotels and everything. So I shot in Vegas, looked for locations. Film office gave me suggestions, but there were restrictions in these houses. You have to be out by 8 o'clock. You have to take your equipment with you. And that's not going to work. I can't. Nighttime shoots I need, right? So I said, I'm going to shoot it in my house. Doesn't matter. This way I can control the environment. You can leave your equipment anywhere, can shoot all night. I don't, whatever, no restrictions. So that's how that ended up. So we got one location, and then the cast, right? So I started to put together. So we only have 6 characters. We have 4 leads and we have 2 supporting.
Right.
So my 4 leads. So I had worked with some actors before. 2 of them had been in my last movie that fell apart. So I had relationships with them. And then the other 2 came in, and we all got along very well. And I hired a crew that were all graduates or alum from UNLV, University of Las Vegas film school here, huge film school. Would not know it. USC, it's just as big as USC in LA. And so there was 6 crew, and we shot in 6 days.
That's amazing. That's a quick shoot.
It is a quick shoot. And I wrote the script. I wrote the script in like 6 weeks. I already had this plot in my head. So I started to, go through. And again, one good thing about being your own producer as well as directing is that your budget limitations. A lot of directors tend to go over budget over time. They don't pay attention to finances. When you're producing it, you have to pay attention to all that. So you go through, and you're like, no, this, we can't go over this. In fact, we actually ended our last scene with one scene. We shot the 6th day. We were actually ahead. One thing looking back, I will get that I didn't have was an AD, assistant director, You always need an assistant director on set. I thought I could handle everybody, get everybody organized, because I was also the script supervisor.
Too
Because
much.
I'm thinking, I'm directing it, I wrote it, I'm going to look at the script and them at the same time, right? The set was already set. It was already in place. My house is already set up and that's it, right? So I didn't need to do anything else to it because it's a vacation rental. You don't have to decorate it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It's just a house. Like if you go in any vacation rental house anywhere, it's already has everything in there, right? It's turnkey. So, I'm wearing a lot of hats. And I needed an AD because I needed somebody to get the actors on set on time. Some of them would come late or they'd be on the phone.
Right.
Or they'd want lunch. Or the crew would be at the snack table, Yeah, so you need somebody to be the barking dog in the room. And I think that's one thing I would get next time when I do Holistay 2, because it's a trilogy, would have the AD.
Yeah, that's exciting that it's a trilogy. I was going to ask you if the story was going to continue. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I think I'm going to shoot it in Ireland. I just got back. My husband's from Ireland. And that's how I ended up with some of these Celtic influences, because I think Ireland and Scotland, Wales, England, all of that, especially Ireland, it's all very spiritual, right? All the ghosts and things seem to come out of that part of the world. Also, Bulgaria and Transylvania too, parts of Europe.
Well, I saw the trailer. You mentioned a banshee in there.
Yeah, Banshee is a female spirit, and you don't see her, but you hear her before someone's going to die. And there was an article in the Irish Times recently about how it was about banshees and how people still hear them. They hear them. Like they interviewed like sensible people, and said, I hear it. And then somebody that I know passes. So they're out there. There's a druid in there. A druid is a Celtic priest. And I tried to find creatures that weren't common. I didn't want to do the masked bit again.
Right.
And I didn't want to do the knife thing again. Right. I was trying to find creative different ways where I could have creatures and elements that were not usual. Right. So again, limited budget. I don't have CGI. So I go back to the older movies. I think today, and I admire everyone's work, but I think today in these horror movies, and I think I think my movie should be labeled suspense.
Right.
And thriller and not horror. But if you look at the today's horror movies, I was just watching The Pope's Exorcist with Russell Crowe.
Yes, I saw that was on Netflix now.
Okay. So, heavy CGI, right? I like the story behind it because it was written by the Pope's Exorcist this priest wrote this book, right? It was an interesting story. That's what made this interesting. But, we've seen these demonic possession people. And, if I see one more person walk upside down one more creature walk upside down on the wall or twist around, they all seem to do the same thing. They must all have the same CGI formula because they're all walking, they all end up doing the same thing, right? So when you get back to this, this AI thing, you're watching a computerized, digitized, robotic creature.
Right.
They're not real. They're made on somebody's laptop screen in a CGI format, right?
Well, I've had that conversation with my wife that, we want to get back to where it was just good storytelling as the main focus instead of really good CGI effects as the main focus.
I mean, you can, don't understand me. They're fine. Okay. They're fine to use. They enhance it. But I think if it's too much, like you go back 20 some years ago to Lord of the Rings, right?
Yeah.
Peter Jackson used it very sparingly. It wasn't overwhelming. You had some of the creatures, or even in Harry Potter, right? But now it seems like I was just watching the second season of Witcher. which is, I love all the mage and all that, So, but this season was very heavy CGI. I mean, there was a creature every 5 minutes, and now it's getting too much. Where's the imagination? Where's very little dialogue?
No, it's basically you're seeing the same thing over and over again.
You're seeing the same thing, and then you get desensitized to it, right? If you have too much violence or too much anything in a film. Yeah. Remember, people's attention spans are limited.
That's right.
I don't mean not in a bad way. I mean, it's hard to get somebody to watch a 3-hour movie.
Sure.
Now, there are some that are successful, like Peter Jackson's movies were long, Apocalypse Now, Godfather. There are exceptions, but today everything's very instant, right? So you're supposed to get everything fast, and then you kind of, after 20 minutes, you start to get bored because you're seeing the same thing over and over, and especially in horror movies, if you have too much blood and too much gore and too much, you're like, okay. So I try to avoid that. It is a very slow burn. It's a story. There's a lot of dialogue, and you have to, if you listen to it, it all makes sense at the end, right? So it may not be everyone's cup of tea, but people do, I've had a lot of people like it. But a lot of people were disappointed it wasn't a horror film.
Right. Not me. I'm on your side.
Look, I don't, I'm just happy people watched it. I don't,
right attitude. Yeah. Don't get tied up in what they think necessarily. No. Be happy that they're taking the time to watch. But I thought, just from the trailer, I thought it looked terrific. It looked like you had good casting. The writing sounded really good. And yeah, I'm excited to watch the whole feature. So the twist at the end, does it kind of let you know what's been going on? I mean, does it just hint at it, and then we got to wait for the next two to kind of fully understand what's happening?
Well, the end explains why this particular episode, the sequence of events. Two couples who don't know each other double book a vacation house in San Diego, and strange things start to happen. So the ending explains what that strange thing is and why it was. You see what the strange things are, but then you know why it happened at the end. What you won't know until maybe even Holistay 3 is the motivation, and are some of these things real, or are they pretending to be so?
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Will we see some of the same characters, or will it be different couples each time?
You will see some same characters, yes.
All right.
Yes.
Well, that sounds pretty exciting. Do you have a start date for the second one, or is that too soon yet?
I want to start it in April of next year. I'm writing the script now. I just decided to shoot it in Ireland because I just got back from a 3-week trip and I really enjoyed myself. So, but it's logistically, I have to plan it out. I have to find out crew costs, and Ireland's a great film town, a great film country. A lot of people film in Ireland. So, and it just kind of fits because one of the couples is Irish in this movie, Holistay. There's the one of the couples is vacationing from Ireland. So it kind of makes sense to bring it back there. I don't want to say too much.
Yeah.
Again, it's difficult.
Yeah, you don't want to give too much away. As fans, we want to know like every twist, but still be surprised. We're very difficult.
Yeah, well, in fact, the trailer was tricky. My editor cut a trailer that we submitted to distribution, and they didn't take that. The trailer that I originally submitted had no Banshee or Druid in it.
Yeah.
And they recut it. That's their prerogative. So it had more explanation or like more detail of it. So you kind of get the gist, but that's their call.
Yeah.
I guess if you don't give people enough, they're not going to watch it. So I get that. Yeah, my plan is it would be easier to shoot here again.
Sure.
But I want to mix it up a bit. I want to branch out it would be more money. So I'd have to get more money organized for it, but I think it's worth a shot,
That
to see
would
if I can pull it off.
be fun too. Might as well have some fun while you're doing it.
Oh, it's great fun to shoot your own film, I tell you. It's great fun to shoot any film.
Well,
It's
and you're shooting in your own house. That's not terrible.
no, that's one good thing about shooting in your house. If you need something, you know where to get it.
Right.
Or how to get it. If you don't have it, you'll get it.
When you're done, you just go find your bed.
Yeah, well, I had some good PAs. Every morning they'd come at 7 and we do a cleanup around, make sure everything was organized for the next day and stuff like that. And then I had a big cleaning service come in after, because the whole house was being used, we're all, we had the makeup room and, the closets. People, if we weren't shooting in one of the bedrooms, that people would be taking naps,
Yeah, well, of course. Yeah, it was a film shoot, so you're gonna have that stuff.
It was a big commune here for 6 days.
Did you get to do like a red carpet? Did you get to see it in a theater at all?
No, because even if I was a bigger picture, that's not the business model anymore. Even these high, profile films, like, okay, this big budget film, Pope's Exorcist. I mean, that was in theaters 3 weeks and now it's on streaming, right? Really, really big films take a long time. Like, I don't think you'll see Barbie on streaming anytime soon, or Oppenheimer, but today's model is a lot of them are just, and if it's an Amazon studio film or a Netflix studio film, they don't have actual studios, they call them their studios, but they'll go right, to streaming. So if you're ever looking at these interviews with anyone, they'll say, and now on streaming on Netflix or streaming on Amazon or Hulu or Disney Plus or Apple, and all these other, Paramount Plus, they have streaming now. That's where it's all going, because theaters, and I don't want to see theaters go away. I think we need theaters, but the cost of putting it in a theater is high, and you also have to promote it, right? So you have to get the trailers, and it's just more expensive, right? So advertising is very, very expensive. That's why shows like yours, podcasts like yours, are very valuable to indie filmmakers, because we can get out our message. We don't have a huge budget for advertising, right? So Barbie, that studio spent 150 million just on advertising.
Crazy.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, if you didn't know about Barbie, then you were not living in Earth at the time, right? So it was constant, but that's a studio film. And it went into a film, it was in a movie theater. But some movies don't belong on streaming, like big action movies. I can't imagine seeing Mission Impossible.
No, for that.
Top Gun, some of those films really theater, but again, they're big budget films. So I did have a small premiere here in Vegas. I have a friend whose husband was an actor, and she has a very, very large home, and a home theater kind of situation. So we had about 30 people, and we had a cocktail party, and then we all watched the film the day it came out. But I didn't do like a big red carpet launch. I mean, those things, again, that's money. You got to bring the actors in. They don't live in, only two of them live in Vegas.
Yeah.
The others are in California. One's, and she lives in Scotland. It's hard to get them here. And then what do you do with these people after the film? You got to have a big splashy party, right?
That's right.
So it's all money.
Yeah.
And that money could be better served putting into the next film.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. And I kind of like the smaller party situation, because it's very intimate. If you want to pause it and talk about it for a little bit, you can. You've got the more control if it's in a smaller environment. I like that.
Yeah, it worked well. We did close the bar though. We couldn't have the bar going well because would cause noise. during pivotal scenes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. You don't want yeah, you had to close. I get it. You got to close that down so people aren't getting up and down during the
Right.
yeah. Yeah. Because they would.
Yeah, oh, they'd have their own party in the bed. People have a few drinks, they start talking about it's like, no. So
True.
I was very well behaved, though. Everybody sat and watched the whole thing. I only watched people who would, I know a lot of people, my husband, I know a lot of people here, unfortunately, but like, I didn't invite everybody. I only invited people that would like that kind of movie.
Yeah.
Or who like movies. Some people don't even watch movies. A lot of people don't watch movies. That's fine, but they weren't invited. It was only certain people.
Well, it's good that you know who to invite.
Yeah, well, you don't want somebody, yawning or falling asleep, or they just don't watch stuff, or, they get up and they walk into the kitchen and start talking on their cell phone. I mean, you can't tell. It's like when you have a party, guests are important. They're just as important as what you're serving,
Yeah.
There's been a lot of movies about that, like called The Dinner Party or Dinner with Andre or something,
Yeah.
or Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Oh God.
Yeah, I like the behind the scenes stuff because you're giving a little insight into just how difficult it is, especially with indie films, to make it all happen, because you have to wear so many hats. I mean, it's probably a good thing it was a 6-day shoot. If it went on for 15, 20 days, you may have been exhausted.
There was no reason for it to go on for 15, 20 days. I mean, if you're on a tight schedule and you write it as you look at it, like, okay, we only have this much money, this is the shoot time. Some film sets, they go it over and over and over again. Directors want perfection. I allow the actors to have freedom in some regards. Like, they know their character. If they think their character would do it this way, I let them do it that way, because they have become that character.
Yeah, I like that.
And you need another set of eyes all the time too. Yeah. You need another perspective, right? So you have your editor in post and they have their perspective. But I think if an actor, really a good actor, and they were all very good actors, if they think this would be done this way, then I allow that, unless it's absolutely ridiculous. But that's not the case. I mean, they were all very good at their suggestions on certain scenes. And there wasn't a lot, but there were some. And nobody ever sticks to the entire script, ever. I don't care who it is. There's always deviation.
Well, and I like the fact that, if I was an actor, it'd make me feel a little more included if my suggestions were at least listened to. Even if
That's right. You have to respect the talent and allow them their creative expression, and your scene will flow a lot better and they will be happier.
Yes.
Because what you don't want is an annoyed actor.
That's right.
Disastrous. Yeah. Or tension between the crew, and crew gets testy sometimes. You got to watch them, especially the DPs. You got to watch the DPs.
As an audience, we can tell when the chemistry's off.
Oh yes, you can. A lot of movies have tanked because the two leads were not in sync.
Yeah, you can tell. That's underrated, I think, how important that is.
I agree. I wanted everyone to get along. In fact, in real life, one of the couples is married already.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they had good synergy together.
Yeah.
They had good synergy. Fun
getting to act in a movie together. I think that'd be fun. Yeah. Maybe stressful too. I don't know.
I mean, they did it very well. They nailed one scene in one take.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Mary, this has been terrific, and best of luck on the film. It looks really, really good. The trailer was well done. I can tell it's well written. I'm excited. When we get back from LA, that's the plan. We'll check it out, and then I'll give you even bigger kudos once.
I appreciate it. I hope you like it. Like I said, it's a very slow burn.
I like slow burns.
Yeah.
I like those because it makes you actually pay attention to what's going on.
Brain exercises.
Yeah.
That's very good. So I'm happy it's on Amazon Prime Video. On VOD, it's on iTunes, and in a few weeks it's going to be on AVOD, and then hopefully Peacock.
Well, that'd be
But
awesome.
yeah, but right now I think the primary is Amazon Prime Video, which pretty much everyone has.
Yeah.
So it's an easy thing.
No, that's really good. That's really good. So a couple little things, Mary, before we wrap up. Other than the sequel, are you working on anything else we can keep an eye out for?
Somebody in another interview had watched Electile Dysfunction and said it's a good time to do another political documentary. So I don't,
They're not
it's
wrong.
tempting. It's tempting, but challenging. It's very, very hard to make documentaries. I mean, it's not hard in the sense of, it's hard because it's time consuming and you have to plot it out and you have to get your interviews. And back then I was a journalist, you know, and people knew who I was, or I had my credentials as a journalist.
Well,
I guess today I could just say, hey, I'm a filmmaker, here's my work, you can say it, and I already did a documentary. But you have, the hardest thing is getting interviews with high profile people. So if I wanted to go out and interview, I could maybe get an interview with Robert Kennedy Jr. I'd like to do that.
Yeah.
Because his campaign manager, Dennis Kucinich, was interviewed in my Electile Dysfunction documentary. Back then he was running for president. He had just, I think he was still a congressman at that time. He's congressman of Ohio, in Ohio.
I think right, because yeah, that's right in my neighborhood. I think that's right.
Yeah, and so I could, you know, but if you want to get the bigger guns, you know, like, could I get DeSantos if I wanted, or could I get, you know, probably not Donald Trump. I don't think he does interviews. I mean, again, I'm being all round, you know, you have to be all encompassing. Could I interview the president? Most likely not. I mean, you know, it's very hard to get these kind of interviews, right? So without getting the bigger players, you know, you can, as in my last documentary, you know, I had a hard time getting Obama. He was the front runner. I did get John McCain. I got some Hillary Clinton footage. I was fortunate to get Laura Bush. I got Joe Wilson, who had been the ambassador to Iraq. And that's when, right around the time Valerie Plame was out, his wife was exposed by Dick Cheney, allegedly by Dick Cheney, as a CIA agent and all that. So I got him. So, you know, but it's very tricky, and you have to, takes a lot of time to set up these interviews, and then you have to find out where they are. See, Philadelphia and Pennsylvania itself was a great place to find these people because they were all coming through.
Sure.
They were all coming through for campaign stops, and all kinds of, you know, all kinds of journalists I could get there too for interviews and stuff. But I don't know the culture of Las Vegas in terms of who's coming here.
Sure.
I'd have to constantly be traveling. Then you have to take your crew with you, you know, it
sounds like a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, and it would be expensive.
It's a good time for it.
It is a good time, and I hope somebody does it. You know, I don't know if I could swing it, to be honest, but if I could, I would. Yeah. If I could, I would. I would start now, and it would come out right after the election. I would go right up into next year's election.
That'd be awesome. Well, I'm crossing that you change your mind.
In the meantime, I'll stick with thrillers, suspense, not too dissimilar from politics, right?
Right. So last thing, Mary, before we go, where can we find you on social media?
So I'm on TikTok under Mary G. I'm on Facebook, Instagram. IMDb has the film on it. You know, everyone, all my actors are on there. I don't have a website for the film. I don't think movies are served well by websites because
nobody goes and checks those out.
Yeah, I mean, you just, Holistay's everywhere. You know, I'm fortunate. I've had a lot of publicity, probably because it's August or July, August.
Yeah.
And maybe because there's this strike
Well, it's probably not hurting situations because people are looking for content right now.
Right. So I'm allowed, I'm an independent film. I have no studio affiliation. My distributor has no affiliation. Some of my actors are on the picket lines, and because I am on a platform, a studio platform, they do not feel comfortable promoting it. And I get that, their SAG rule is you can't promote any film right now. So there's probably, hopefully this all will get settled out soon, both sides will come to the table.
Let's take care of everybody and
work. So, but it leaves an opening for me to talk about my film because there's not a lot of people able to talk.
Yeah, I get like the reason that I believe that our podcast has been successful is because in 2020 everybody was home looking for something to do. So just about guess that I possibly wanted was like, sure, I'm not doing anything, and it really helped us out for that.
Yeah,
I'd have probably given it up if we could have skipped all that stuff,
Right.
But it did really help us out, kind of launched our podcast.
Right. Yeah, you have a great IMDb page.
Yeah, we've worked hard on that.
Yeah. And your son too works with you, right?
He does all the editing. He'll appear on an interview or on camera, but he prefers not to. So he does all the editing and the marketing and that stuff. He does the hard stuff.
Well, that's very important.
Oh, it's the most important, I think. I just show up and talk.
Yeah. Show up. Well, that's, you have to engage your guests. If you sometimes, I'm pretty easy, I think, because I used to be you do. Only when I was a journalist, I had to, but not every guest is going to be that, is talkative. They may be shy, they may be inhibited, they may not feel comfortable, they may have to be doing it, and they want to do it, but they don't know how to do it.
That's right. It's really surprising when you're talking with established people in the entertainment business, especially actors, and they come on and they act like they've never been on an interview.
Right. They don't like interviews.
No, it always surprises me. So that's why we try to have more of a conversation, because people tend to kind of relax and it's just better.
Oh yeah. Yeah. A lot of actors, they're a rare breed of people. Or imagine spending your whole life, your whole career being someone else.
That's right.
And convincing an audience that this is this person, right? So that there's something to be said for that, So I allow them to be themselves. They're all pretty easygoing, and I hope to, connect with more actors and, bring more characters into the next film.
Yeah.
So because I like actors, I find them fascinating. I don't think I could do it.
No, me either. That's not for me.
I don't think I could do it. No, I like to be on the other side, of the camera.
Yeah.
And look at them and, say, hey, you missed a line. Excuse me, stick to the script.
Could you drop the donut and get back over here?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God. Well, we had some of those moments. You get tired and punchy too.
Yeah.
But remember, it's not only creative, it's a business too.
Right.
Because we're in it for the creativity, but we also need to eat something. So, we have to eat. So
you gotta, yeah. If you're going to get the work, you're going to have to make sure they're fed for sure.
Oh yeah, especially the snack table.
Which I'm guessing was just like your dining room table.
Now I have a back room, a back office that goes out to the back. So it was my desk. I cleared it off. I put a big tablecloth and it was all snacks. And then I had unlimited Klondike bars in the freezer. They all love the Klondike bars.
Smart move.
Yeah. Water bottles everywhere. Iced tea. They were very funny. Nobody wanted sodas. I'm not a soda drinker either, but sometimes a Diet Coke for caffeine if you don't want coffee.
Right.
They wouldn't touch the soda. Like, nah, that's not good for me. I'm not going to touch that. And then sometimes at night we'd have beer. We'd bring out beer, whiskey. There's whiskey in the scene. Screwball whiskey. My friend makes it. It's peanut butter whiskey.
Really?
Yeah, and it's It's pretty available everywhere now. He started out in San Diego, and I'm not a whiskey drinker, but it's peanut butter. I like peanuts. So it's a tasty drink. Like, you can put it in your coffee, or if it's cold, you can do a shot of it, because it gets cold here in Vegas. Nobody knows that. It's 30 degrees in the winter,
Yeah,
and it snows. And April nights were chilly. I mean, it was about, I don't know, 50 degrees.
chilly.
So it wasn't really product placement. He didn't pay for he just gave me some bottles, and I said, look, we'll have whiskey in some of the scenes. And so one day they polished off a bottle. It was like 2 a.m. You have those days, but it enhanced the scene.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
When you see one of the characters, so Stephen Martini plays Tony, and he's walking down the steps. He hears the banshee for the first time, and he's walking down the steps, and he looks wild-eyed like Jack Nicholson did in The Shining when he said, "Here's Johnny."
Yeah.
That's whiskey talking. That's the whiskey in the scene. It's not in the scene. It was in the kitchen before the scene.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's actually not a terrible idea. For certain.
No, I'm liberal like that. I mean, as long as you're in control of yourself, and not during the day, but at night you're sitting around and you're waiting, you want a glass of wine before you go out in the 2 a.m. and do your scene.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I mean, what do you think goes on in these Hollywood these trailers? In these big productions? I'd like to see what's in those trailers.
Know what's going on in there.
What's going on in the trailer, right? We didn't have trailers, no.
Well, Mary, thank you so much. You have to come back when the second one's getting ready to come out.
I do. I should. I definitely should. And I really enjoy talking to Mike. Mike, what do you like?
It's fine. I usually go by Mike, but it looks better written as Michael. So
Mike, yeah. It was a pleasure speaking with you. You're a lot of fun, and I wish you every success with your podcast.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
I'm impressed. Yeah.
Likewise, good luck with the film. I have good feelings about it. I think it's going to do well, and it'll just lead to bigger and bigger as you do the next two. So yeah, best of luck.
That's what I'm hoping. Thank you very much. And again, appreciate the opportunity like this for us small indie people to get our work out there in the ether. And
that's right.
You do a great service.
Well, I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you so much. Hold on one second. That was really enjoyable. Mary Gallagher. I think she's so talented, and I'm sure she was an absolutely wonderful political journalist. You can kind of tell she's got that kind of journalistic feel to her. I think you can tell that she did that for a while. I think she was really good. Her writing is amazing. If you've never seen Electile Dysfunction, it's a terrific political documentary. Really well done. It's been, I don't know, 15 years since I watched it, but I loved it at the time. Still remember it. It's just been a little bit. So the new movie is Holistay. Please, I ask that anytime we have these independent filmmakers on, I always ask that we make sure we support them, because I think a lot of our best writing is happening in the independent ranks. They may not have the budget to make it flashy, but the writing is really good. So we definitely want to support that type of film. So Holistay, first of a trilogy. Loved hearing that. The tagline that I read when I was kind of prepping for it is wickedly fun. And I love that. I've always been really interested in the Irish type of ghosts. Banshee's definitely one of them. I'm a comic book guy too. So Banshee in the comic books was a gentleman that was in the X-Men. But normally a Banshee is a female spirit. So love that was in there. I like the Druid reference. If you're a Dungeons and Dragons player like I was growing up, all about Druids. And I was always very into the Celtic kind of history and stuff. So I just found that really interesting. I love that she's put that into the film. And the next one's going to be filming at least partially in Ireland, which is just amazing. Love that. Hope you enjoyed that one. If you're finding us for the first time, thank you. Really appreciate the support. And I hope that you'll help us by subscribing. It's free, and it really does help us to continue to bring great guests to the program. Our YouTube channel is MeisterCon Pod. Just hit that subscribe button. It's free. If you prefer to listen, wherever you're listening to your podcast at, whatever application you're using, just subscribe there. That'll help us as well. We're just a couple away from 650 episodes. Probably hit that Monday or Tuesday next week. We normally put out 4 or 5 episodes a week. You can find all of those, audio and video, on our website, meistercon.com. So please check us out there, and we'll also throw up some pictures when we get together to watch Holistay. So you can see that there as well, meistercon.com. IMDb named us one of its top 100 podcasts. That's not easy to get that designation. There's about 15 million podcasts. So we're really proud of that. You can help us just a ton if you would go to imdb.com, look up Too Opinionated. That's it. Just look at bring the page up. That's all you got to do. It's free. Really, the traffic helps us a ton. But while you're there, maybe scroll through the episodes or cast list. I guarantee you'll find dozens of actors, writers, musicians, directors, anything you can think of in the entertainment industry. You'll find people that you love or that you will become a fan of. So definitely, please check that out. imdb.com, Too Opinionated Podcast. Thank you guys so much. Till next time. Bye, everybody. Hi, everybody. I'm once again here to ask for your support. It's been a big year for the Too Opinionated Podcast. Back in February, we got to live out a dream, moderate for William Shatner here in our hometown. In May, we passed 100,000 downloads on our YouTube channel, and we followed that up in June with 50,000 downloads on the audio side. We recently posted our 600th episode, which is pretty good volume for just a father and son operation. Not too many podcasts can keep that volume up. We've been doing this now for 4.5 years, 600 plus episodes. We recently hit 1,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel, which is a really big deal for us because we've always gotten the views, but have struggled to get people to subscribe. So that 1,000 was a big deal for us. And best of all, we were recently named one of the top podcasts on IMDb, which is the entertainment database. Those that are ahead of us, we came in at number 82. Those that are ahead of us are bigger companies like Disney, mostly Marvel, and Joe Rogan, that type of podcast. So for us, being just a small West Virginia father and son podcast, to be in the top 100 out of 15 million, it's a pretty big deal for us. So thank you for everything you've done for us so far. Got a couple little ways, though, that you can help us, and they're free, and they're really easy. If you haven't checked out our YouTube channel yet, please go to YouTube. It's under MeisterCon Pod. Just hit subscribe. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. Really helps us a ton. And maybe even more important, if you could go to imdb.com, look up the Too Opinionated Podcast, and just look around the page. Just having that traffic on the page really helps us out. So that's a couple easy ways that you can support us, even if you're not listening or watching all of the time. And we want you to listen and watch, because I think that our guest list, I would put up against anybody, any other show, podcast, anybody out there. I think our guest list holds up. So please check us out. You probably will find somebody that you like, or maybe somebody that you didn't know you liked, but kind of discovered them on there. There's tons of that. If you're into music, we have that too. If you like books, we've got authors on there. If you're more into what goes on behind the scenes in the entertainment world, you know, we've got producers, directors, video artists, anything you can think of that happens behind the scenes, we've had them on the show. So definitely check us out. Thank you guys so much. Until next time. Bye, everybody.